So God has blessed us to be able to travel places around the world. And I think you've probably been, of course, the most active in terms of traveling. Is there any place you haven't been? That's probably the best way to ask the
Yeah.
question, as opposed to actually
Please.
where you've been. Like,
Well, that depends on if we're talking about physically or what I mean by
let's
that
stay
is,
physical. Let's stay physical.
let me tell
I
you,
know what you
let me
mean.
explain a
Yeah.
little bit too, like, because I have the trip planned to Antarctica that's coming up in this February. But if you go back some years in my posts on Facebook, I said I'm already in Antarctica. Pretty much, I'm waiting for my body to meet me there, but I'm already there. And so, at what point did you get there? Did you get there when your body actually landed there, or when you perceived it? If that makes any sense.
I hear
So,
what you're saying.
but yeah, so to answer your question, where has my body not met up with me yet? My body has not yet met up with me in Antarctica, but I'm there. And after that, that will be my seventh continent. And I have been to every state in the U.S. and about 56 countries multiple times over, which is really bizarre to me. I don't even understand it, to be quite honest. And I don't mean I don't understand it in the sense of I don't understand it. I mean, I don't understand it.
I'm like, huh?
Just like what is it? Like, what am I when I look back at when we first met, I didn't have passport for the first. I didn't have no job, nothing. I just said I'm going.
Yeah.
And
I
people
remember
told
that.
me, and people would say to me directly or to other people, as if they were contributing to my life in some way or another, that I needed to settle down and just get a job and or you need to be a member of this place and organization in order because you need somebody, you need an umbrella, and you need all this kind of, and I'm just like, but I see my vision, I see where I'm going,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I remember when you
You know?
first started traveling, man. Like that was a big deal. Like,
my first stop was Texas.
mm-hmm.
It was here when I got out of the Marines. This is the first place I came.
Yeah, I remember that, man. Cause I'll be telling you, man, do it. You know what I'm saying? I remember you telling me that you get pushback from different people or who want you to settle down and get a more stable. I said, man, go travel, dude. Do it, brother.
And then next thing you know, like, I think when you find your thing, or when your thing finds you, when y'all find each other,
Yeah.
it just starts taking on a life of its own and
Yeah.
making its own story. And you get to sit back and kind of look at it. And that's what I think I was saying, like, I don't understand. Probably because it's still actively happening. And, a lot of times when things are actively happening, you only really truly, first of all, knowledge is the past, right? Everything you know is past. It's the information that you've stored away. So I can know my experience up till this point, but it's not complete. It's still relative to what's happening presently, which I can't really explain, and I can't really, you know what I'm saying? So that's what I mean. Like, I still look at him like, what in the world?
Yeah. And it made sense. Like when you told me you got a job with the airlines, I'm like, that makes sense, dude. Like,
It makes
this
sense.
is who you are. Like, this fits you.
Well, when you start flying?
For work, or for like just following my thing?
Thing.
Okay, that's another rabbit hole of a question. Okay, so the reason, and I'll tell you why I say that. So, I guess most notably, so probably around like when I got out of the Marines at 22, and that's when I started doing the stuff that was like more, I don't know, prominent, I guess, or people like more noteworthy. When people say, "Oh, he's going places," because it was more. I think because the time, the space of time between trips was just more narrow. Whereas I had actually, when I graduated from high school, like I have journal entries from when I was 15, saying I was going to travel the world and explore and see and I remember it kept getting confirmed to me from people who didn't even know me, who would come up to me and just look at me and say, God is opening doors for you to go overseas right now. God is doing this for you, or I see you popping up all over the place. It happened so much, and I just knew it. So then But when I turned 18, I remember one time I think I was 17, and I was sitting in the church and everybody was shouting and stuff, and I paused and I just sat there and I was like, wait a second. I said, "Speak, Lord, your servant hears." And then I heard, I said, "Hear my Lord, send me," because that's what the message is about. And I was like, well, I don't want to shout. I want to communicate. And I heard, "I've already sent you." And so I was like, okay, I don't need any explanation after this. It'll show itself. And I just kept hearing stuff like that. And then when I graduated high school, but I graduated, I knew I was going to the Marines. So that was 94. And I signed up in February of 94, but I told them I did not want to actually go to boot camp until December. And the reason being is because I wanted to work throughout the summer, save up enough money to do some traveling. So when you say, when did you start? Okay. I'm like, I could say when I was 22 in 98, I think it was, 98, 99, 98, because that's when it was just more rapid. Yeah. But it goes back and back. It goes back to when I graduated high school and I worked and saved up money and took a bus trip to Memphis and took a bus trip to Alabama, took a bus trip by myself doing these things at 18 years old. Or I could go back to when I was 15 years old and I saw it and I was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to see. Or it could be fast forward to 98 when I was actually coming here, and then I was literally traveling by Greyhound. So when you said start flying too, it was like more than flying, because I was traveling by Greyhound across the country. Yeah. Okay. Almost every time I came here, most of the time I was traveling by bus, I think. I'm pretty, yeah. And so, yeah.
You're traveling by bus in Austin?
Yeah. Oh. I was traveling by bus around the whole U.S.
Oh, okay.
I would just
not like in Austin, but like to Austin.
To Austin.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I was like, well, we don't have a bus.
So he don't have no concept of bus travel.
Oh, really?
He's so young. You know what I'm saying? But back in the day, like, that was how you got from state to state.
Okay.
Yeah, on the bus.
Travel. I mean, yeah. I would take the Greyhound. I would let them know, hey, I'm going to come in. Although I don't remember. I remember that one time I flew because that was the time where the situation we talked about before. But I don't remember what an Austin bus station looks like or anything. But I know that I was traveling by bus more often than not. So I don't.
Well, I remember you picking you up at the bus station.
Do you remember that?
I remember. Yeah.
And I remember I was coming here once when my luggage got stolen, and I was coming to, I think I was in Detroit or something. My luggage got stolen. All my suits were in it, and I was coming for your sister's wedding. And then from there, I was going to Houston for the AIM convention, and that's when I had the epiphany, or a lot of things just shifted for me as far as my involvement in the church. Because prior to that, as you mentioned in our previous discussion, how people were having me speak. I was sitting on the platforms with the bigwigs, as you were saying, all that kind of stuff, and I was being recognized. And not the recognition was the thing, because I was genuine, I believe, and sincere, but I was being recognized, and I was being used and asked to participate in different things that most people weren't being asked to participate or do. But then when I went to that conference that year, all my stuff had been stolen. I'm going to church in shorts now. And it felt like, and maybe I projected that onto it, but from what I understood, it felt like the people who were praising me before, I disappeared. I didn't exist anymore. And that started to make me question things like, so I was anointed when I had the suit, but not now that I'm here in church with shorts and a t-shirt. That's a whole different topic.
No, you're right. I remember that convention because I was there with you. You know what I'm saying? And to see like how people looked at us by extension, because I was with you, as if it was his choice to wear that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? And so for them,
and they had no idea what the situation was.
He didn't have any clothes with him, and so like it was so easy for them to dismiss him. You know what I'm saying? And I think that opened my eyes too. Okay, so let me ask you guys this: like, how has, and we'll let Alex start. How has traveling influenced your life, or how has it changed the way you view life, the world, people?
That's a little question. I guess I'll start with like going to different countries, especially. it just takes you out of like that like I'm the like I'm the protagonist type of mindset. Like United States is the main character. It dethrones the United States when you go and travel that way.
Yeah.
For sure.
Because like everyone's life is as equally as important as anybody else's life, and there's as much as we praise the United States system of doing things, there's better ways of doing things, and
simpler ways.
And simpler ways of doing
like,
things.
It brings them so much joy to do simple things. Like for us, I think simple things is lost on us. Like we don't value even just talking to each other like they do in other countries. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I saw a lot of like just like genuine interactions, kind of like what you said. Like a lot of people out on picnics, like in the parks, or getting exercising, getting up early in the morning, like valuing good food, like just hanging out with friends. I don't know. Maybe most of that just might be me not experiencing that in the United States, but going out of the United States and traveling, you tend to like observe more because you're in a new place.
Absolutely.
And I think it helps me to see those things and then try to like cultivate that environment when I get back.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you want to answer your own question?
Sure. You want to ask me something?
I mean, well, I have questions, but I want to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah. So basically, what he said, man, like it like you're very keen to culture all of a sudden. You know what I'm saying? I think in America, because it's the water that we swim in, so to speak, you don't realize that much about the water. You know what I'm saying? Because we're part of it. It's just natural for us. But when you're out of your water into somebody else's water, it gives you a more keen awareness of what's going on. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, like he said, like you see people, oh man, just being like, for me, I just saw people enjoying simplicity. You know what I'm saying? Like, very few people in a rush. I really didn't see anybody like in a rush, you know. Specifically when we went to Italy, they had like an hour-long lunchtime that everybody had to take. Like, you had to literally leave your job to participate in an hour-long lunch. You know what I'm saying? And so just stuff like that, man, like just seeing that, like, wow, man, like they value different things than we value, you know, and it just makes for a more pleasant environment, you know what I'm saying? And I know of course, we don't live there, so of course, I mean, I know they got their downsides too, but as a visitor, man, like it was very impactful, you know? And being able to witness or to experience what it's like to be a minority. And I know we get that in America too. But I think it's different because in America, we're a minority based off of skin. In other places, you're a minority based off of language. And even, of course, you know, where you're from too. And so just to see, like, to experience, like, the dissonance of, I'm literally at these people's mercy. Like, I don't know enough to ask for what I need. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how. I don't know if people are genuine enough to lead me the right way to food, or you know, you just don't know. And so you're at people's mercy, and that was very, you know, yeah, it created a lot of dissonance, man. You know, and I just related that to the people who live in America who are on the outskirts of society, like how they must feel as we engage in culture haphazardly. Like we know everything, you know, where to be, where not to be, how to get to where we need to go, and they don't, you know, and we share this language and the nuances of the language. Like we can be saying stuff that have a different meaning than the meaning that they learned was English. You know what I'm saying? And so there's English, but there's also a secret, not secret, but like a way of communicating that's nuanced from the standard English.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Like bad, like, oh
Yeah.
man, that was bad.
Mm.
And they might perceive it as, like if you speak Spanish, you know, and you say, they might translate it as mal, which means bad, like,
Bad,
and
bad.
the literal, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
like, you know, it's muy mal, and like, that's very bad.
Mm.
But, you know, if you say, oh man, that was bad,
Yeah.
you know, we mean something totally different,
right,
and
that's
they
right.
may not be able to process it,
That's right.
because even if they use a translator,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
like, now they might think, oh, what did I do wrong? What was bad about it? Like, no, and you have to explain.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so yeah, it totally, language is definitely
Man, it's
puts
huge.
you at a,
Yeah. And I think for us, it was good that we went in a group because I can't even imagine doing a solo like y'all did. Like without a group of people who share custom with you and tradition, you know what I'm saying? Like how isolating that would be. You know what I'm
and
saying?
that's a beautiful thing.
I know it is, but I can't.
It's so magical,
Yeah.
for lack of better words, just to be at the mercy of.
Speak to it.
I mean, I don't know how spiritual and scriptural and all that kind of stuff we're getting, but you know, when it talks about except you know, become as a child, you will no wise enter the kingdom of heaven, and the kingdom of heaven is within you. Like, so all these riches, all this wealth, all this wonder is right there within you. But unless you revert back to that space of not knowing and being curious and being, you know, available for what's in front of you, then you think you know everything, and so you live this mundane, monotonous type of life or a life of projecting onto whatever it is from what you think you know. But now you don't know. Now it's stripped of you. Now you're that child again, and so you have to depend on your curiosity. You have to depend on your ability to learn, to be aware and be present. You don't have biases really anymore necessarily.
Yeah.
You know, the foods that they eat are different. So you go to this other country and you just, you know, or if you're just trying to make that other country into another type of America, you're not experiencing that country as it is. You're just trying to make it a replication of what you have at home. But when you go there and you are now at this, as you say, like kind of at their mercy or the mercy of the experience, and if you really give yourself to it and flow with it, all the learning, like your senses are heightened on so many different levels because you don't know what's good for you. You don't know who's for you, who's not. So your senses are heightened. It's just an experience like no, I can't depend on anybody else. When I went to China, for instance, I wasn't like in a tourist area. I didn't see, not only did I not see other black people, I didn't see, or people of color, period, almost, other than the Chinese. And I didn't see many white people. And if I did, they weren't Americans. I saw one or two maybe expats or something like that who may have owned it was strict, you know, what you see and what you hear of, right? To the point where when I walked past the store, they would literally stop and just be like staring at me. And I would be like, and they wouldn't stop and wave. They would still just. And someone told me who spoke English, he said, if anyone comes and just takes a picture with you, just let them. He said, because chances are they've never seen someone that looks like you before, and they may not ever see anybody that looks like you again. And so for them, like, these people don't know Obama even. Like, this is how the part I was in. They don't know Beyonce, Michael Jackson, because they don't have access to, or at least at the time, more so, probably now they've changed a little bit because the world is changing. But they they might have known Michael Jackson, but who doesn't know Michael Jackson, you know? But most of these people didn't know. If I were to, you know, if you said somebody that's famous, they didn't know of these people. They just drove smaller world. And here I am there. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't eat meat. What am I going to do? How am I going to order? At the time I was, you know, I would eat chicken. I was in restaurants doing stuff like trying to communicate, or fish. I'm like, and they're looking at me and I'm sitting there I want fish. So I'm like, you know, I'm doing these types of things. And that to me, as crazy as it looks and sounds, is wonderful to be in that position to where now all of a sudden, first of all, you realize how communication really works. Words are great when you use them for what they meant good for. But beyond those words, when you're actually able to, because at this point now, both of us have to be in the same place. Because if they want to understand, they have to be really observant of what I'm trying to communicate. And if I want to communicate, I have to really give attention to what they might understand.
Yeah.
And so that's a true meeting, like no other.
Yeah.
So that's why I say it's its own kind of thing. I know you went to Ireland and they speak English there, but still, even culturally, it's still different.
It is, yeah.
And so, in some senses, you still have to kind of consider how that person hears and understands when you're communicating, even in a place where they speak English.
Yeah. When I first touched down, you walk out, I feel like a different part of your brain is turned on. And I think I in general, I like to be by myself. Like I like to stay with like small groups of people, just because I feel like larger groups tend to slow you down sometimes. Like me, like I like different kinds of foods. I like different kinds of experiences. I like to move at a very particular pace. If I'm tired, I want to be slow. If I'm like feeling energetic, I want to be able to get up and go. I can't always do that with a group of people. Don't get me wrong. There's like times where that's fun. But like kind of like how you said, if you're with a group of people from America, I think the natural inclination when you go to a foreign country is just to replicate American culture with your group of people. But when you're by yourself and you're like the only American, then you have no other choice but to conform to their customs and their way of doing things, which is humbling. And I think it allows you to experience more of that country, because it's like, just do whatever you want. Just observe and just try to like replicate it, And I had the benefit of going to English speaking countries, and so I had that to my advantage as like my first travels. But yeah, it was just more enjoyable. I don't know.
Well, y'all braver than me on that, for real. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think if I didn't have a family, maybe it would be easier to do. You know what I'm saying? But I don't see myself going somewhere completely alone. You know what I'm saying? That I'm not accustomed to. So kudos to y'all, man. That's what's up there.
You know what's really, and when you're saying that, because I was thinking about my mother, and she travels a lot. And she didn't go to Malawi by herself, and of course she knew people when she got there because she runs a school there. But like just this year, for instance, she's been doing it for several years. She went with her cousin, who's like a sister to her, and they're both in their mid-70s. And this is two women in their mid-70s, or around that area, traveling from Florida to Atlanta, from Atlanta to Johannesburg, South Africa, from Johannesburg, South Africa to Malawi. That's like over a 24-hour journey in their 70s. And then being greeted there, and like, even though some people there, you grew up in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, in segregation times and all that kind of stuff. And to go from there, and you're a woman. Like, there's so many things there. And I think that when you talked about it earlier, the privilege, like, being the minority, and we can't even imagine what it is for like a woman to travel. Right. There's certain privileges that we have that we don't pay attention to, but there's, we talk about white supremacy and like in the media and stuff like that, and white privilege, whatever, and just the ladder, how it works, who gets what, and then how the black female is at the bottom of all that. And so we may not have white privilege, but we have male privilege. And then when we go to other countries, we have male American privilege, because a lot of countries do kind of cater to the American tourists. They think, you have money, you help our tourism, whatever. And so you have also women travelers who, you're saying you wouldn't want to travel by themselves, and then you have some that do, and then some that won't because of things that are unfortunate for them, because that experience of traveling is like one of the greatest teachers. So I think that's something just to note, that this is a totally male perspective.
Yeah, that's true.
It's, so we don't know what it's like for them. It would be nice to hear actually some of their challenges at some point.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
And we have the privilege of youth, even though we're in our middle age or close to middle age.
Yeah.
We are somewhat still youthful, and we have that privilege when we travel
Yeah.
of being able to, there's one less thing to be dependent on others for, getting around and stuff like that, and figuring that, and then the quickness of the way things move, our brains are still kind of moving with it, but as we age, our brains don't just respond as quickly to situations. So if somebody's trying to get over in you, you may not be aware of it until they've already done it, and you're in some other country.
Yeah. Because it almost happened to us. I don't even say this the country we went to, but one place we went to, like, they were running a scam on us, dude. And, like, it was enough of us. Now, you hear it. Yeah, so I ain't going to tell the whole story.
You were there too?
Yeah, we'll tell you cheesecake.
But, yeah, man, like, I'm glad it was enough of us to be able to stand back and look at what was going on. Because they were so, like, the scam was so elaborate. There was, like, some over here, some over there. Like, we think the whole group was in on the scam. It was probably like 50 people, like touring a certain country, and us. You know what I'm saying? And we think the majority of the people in the crowd was in on the scam. And so, but we wouldn't know that unless somebody was like really like not invested in the moment, you know what I'm saying, to be able to step back and look at what was going on. And once we saw it, dude, we was like...
It was kind of funny, though.
Yeah.
Once we saw it, it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Was it like, so you saw it, was it like confirmed that it was indeed?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because we saw the guys who were over the tour later carrying these bags with stuff in them. You know what I'm saying? And we like, that ain't going right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so what they was doing was like getting real close to like people in our group, and was like, y'all look over there, and with everybody look over there. It was a guided
tour, so we're all outside.
Yeah, and so that's so and so, and then you look over there to kind of distract you, and then over there you got, and so you look over there. Meanwhile, they getting closer to you, like trying to pickpocket you. And so I peeped. Well, my brother-in-law peeped game first, because he was like. Man, it was a big elaborate thing. Like, yeah, because they called somebody up to sing. Was it to sing or do something? Yeah. And so
they called Josh up or something like that.
Yeah, so they called one of our guys up to sing, and so my brother-in-law noticed somebody on the balcony, like on a different level, like pointing out who they should call up to sing. And so the tour guy was looking up like, oh, him, like, you know what I'm saying? And so my brother-in-law was like, because he's a security guard on his job, you know what I'm saying? So he's trained to do that kind of stuff. He's looking at everything like, yeah, okay, we got people up here who giving signals to these people down. So he let us know. And so once he told us, I stepped back and started watching too. Man, they were trying to run game, dude. I almost went to jail.
You almost went to jail.
Yeah.
Oh, we have to definitely talk about this at Cheesecake
Factory. We got to talk about this, dude.
You know, it's interesting. Actually, that just reminded me of a situation when I was around I was 16, I think, and I was traveling from Alabama to Detroit by myself on the Greyhound. So then that goes back actually to your question earlier of when did it start?
Okay.
Because I was even doing the Greyhound before I graduated high school. But I went to
16,
visit my grandmother in Alabama who was sick at the time. And then I was taking a bus from there to Detroit to visit another grandmother. And I had kept hearing, and I told everybody, it was just bizarre. I heard before it happened that I was going to be like robbed or swindled from. And I kept telling people, I was like, well, I was saying, God said this is going to happen. God said it's going to happen. And they're just like, okay.
Who were you telling?
Family members.
Oh, okay.
Because I didn't know when it was going to happen or where, but I kept dreaming it and seeing it and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, no, I knew it. And then, so I'm traveling on the bus, and then I go to this bus station, and so I go to a bus station in Louisville, Kentucky, I think it was. I'm on the phone. This guy comes to me with his water money. I'm going to try to abbreviate the story, but he says he needs assistance, whatever. And me just wanting to be helpful, I didn't want anybody. I was like, sir, I don't want your. He's like, I'll give you this if you just help this out. I was like, sir, I don't want your money, but I'll try to help you. And so I didn't realize at that point that this scheme was starting at this point. And then so somebody else comes up and was like, man, put your money away, this, that, and the other. He was like, But then, and I was saying, I just want to, I'm trying to help him. He needs help with this, that, and the other. And the guy was just like, oh, yeah, we'll take you to a bank to open up a bank account. I'm like 15, 16 years old, whatever I was, in Louisville, Kentucky, and I had like an hour between transferring my bus or whatever. And so I just wanted to help. And then this guy is like, we're going to get him for his money, all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, now I'm really thinking, oh, I can't let him do this because he's going to try to swindle this guy for his money. So I need to assist so that he doesn't swindle him. And then, and nobody, no parents around, just by myself, just, And so I was like, okay, I'll go with them to the bus, to the bank, because I want to help him get this without this guy doing this. Against my better judgment, of course, I was just trying to help though. So we get there to the bank. He tells him get out of the car, whatever, and he can go open up an account. It's gonna be easy. The guy gets out and leaves, and then when he leaves, this guy who I'm in the car with now, and I'm not feeling the vibe. He's like playing these card games with me.
Shedrach Rowry creative content.
And letting me win. And he was like, okay, so when he gets in, we gonna beat him for his money. He's like, you got $10 or something like that. And I was like, and now I'm feeling a little vulnerable because what if I say no? So I was just like, okay, like I'm in a bad space right here. So when he comes back in the car and he's talking about how he did everything, he took care of it, he's thanking us, whatever. And he was like, all right, we're gonna play a card game with you. And if you lose, you got to give him 20. If he lose, you got to give you. And so I'm like, okay. And so I just gave him the money. And then he, did the exact same thing he did in the car, but he did that whole trick scheme thing to where I lost. I did the exact same thing, but he was taking my, and then he did, man, give me another whatever. And then I gave him more money. And then he did the exact same thing. I said, take me back to the bus station. And he's just like, we gonna play. I said, take me back. I want to go now. And so they drove me back. And then at this point I realized they weren't together. And that
they weren't together?
They were in
it
they
were
together.
together.
And I was like, I know what's going on now. Just take me. And I didn't know if I was going to get killed and just left out somewhere at this point or not. Yeah. But I was just like, I wasn't participating anymore. So they did drive me, clearly. They drove me back to the bus station. I'm here. And he's just like, oh, don't go around front. Just go around back for this. And I was like, nope. I'm going straight for, like, if you're going to kill me, you're going to do it in front of everybody. Is what my mindset is. But that was from me being vulnerable and being part of a scheme my mind that helped form and shape, later years when I travel and stuff like that, and being more keen and aware and alert. But that moment right there at the young, vulnerable teenage age. And then so I went in through the front door, but it was crazy the way it actually happened after that, because I got on that next bus. I was so distraught about what just taken place, still by myself. When I got to my next stop, I didn't hear the conductor say that they were going to be changing buses, so take all your stuff. So I left my stuff on the bus, my ticket. Thankfully, I had a Bible that my great-great-grandmother had, and it had her name in it and her husband's name. So I left everything on that bus. I go on the bus station. I called my grandmother, and I started crying. And then she said, you said God said this was going to happen, right? And I was just like, whoa. It kind of was a moment awakening. And then I didn't even know what to do. And I was just like, and my stuff is gone. I don't know. I'm just like, I was just lost. And she said, is there anybody there I can talk to? And as soon as she said that, there just happened to be a bus driver on the next phone next to me who hung up his phone. And I just said, excuse me, sir, can you please talk to my grandmother? I need some help. Yeah. And he gets on the phone with her, and he said, oh, I happen to be driving the next bus to Detroit that's going straight through, no stops. I'll make sure he gets there myself. And then they took me to the office, and I'm still kind of distraught because they're trying to figure out, where my stuff is. And then they asked some questions, and I told them what was in it. And they were paging my grandmother, my great-great-grandmother, because her name was in the Bible and not me. And so that was why, like, they're paging, but I was so distraught and everything on this trip. but everything came back into place. All my stuff was returned except for the money that I lost with those guys. Yeah. And then that bus driver literally drove me all the way, and nobody told my father, who's my mother knew. My father to this day, and we can't tell him everything. To this day, 46 years old.
Yeah.
And we can't tell him everything because he get a little panicky. He still does not too comfortable even with me going all over the world. He deals with it because he knows it's me, but he's still like. But that was a situation during traveling in my early years that definitely. It's not all fun and games, but in the end, it's a story.
Yeah. Well, here's what I learned, like being in another country, is that we've allowed America to talk us out of using our superpowers as black people. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is we have a language that nobody else understands. All to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that can be useful in other countries, especially when you're traveling in groups. Because what we start doing that scam, we start using ebonics. Like, watch out for old boy, he's trying to get you on sneak. They didn't know what we was talking about. But we was like, oh, okay, yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so we discovered, like, what America tried to educate us out of was the very thing that saved us in the grand scheme of things.
Because we formed a whole other means of communicating. You know what?
You know what I'm saying?
And we can't say it all on here because we don't want nobody learning all
You can't say it all on here.
We're going to leave some of the stuff. We know we can have.
So my point is, don't let people talk you out of what's yours ethnically.
Yeah.
That belongs to us. It belongs to you. Use it. You know?
Absolutely.
Sometimes that's the key to your survival. Is using what you've got naturally through your ancestry.
I would definitely agree. Now you came to visit me in Seattle.
I did, yeah.
Which, you know what's interesting about that? Is that I've known you for 30 almost years, but I've always come to Texas. And you were the first one to actually...
So what are you trying to say?
No, I'm not trying to say nothing.
I'm just trying to say something.
No, I just think it's... No, it's not a thing of like, you ain't no good type thing, but it's kind of a praise towards, for you being a,
In my defense.
There's no need to defend
But
anything.
I have to defend
There's
myself.
no need to defend.
Because you said it in front of people.
No, because the only reason why you would need to defend is if there was an offensive type thing, but there was no offense. It was just simply
in my defense.
It was a statement. It was just, acknowledging a fact.
No, well, let me say
It was
this.
acknowledging a fact.
Let me say this for them.
Yeah.
Because... You try to low-key accuse me.
No, I didn't. There was no accusation. It was a fact.
This. So the reason why...
There's no accusation. There's a fact.
Okay, well, let me get this out. So the
Can you acknowledge that we're just speaking facts?
I'm about to give you a fact. Add this to your list of facts. Add this to your list of facts.
Oh, okay.
The reason why I, or even Craven, haven't come to visit is because for the longest time, you didn't have nowhere to visit.
I've had a place to visit for at least the past 15 years.
But how long have I known
But that's
you?
okay.
But how long have
I wanted to get to Isaac's trip to Seattle. That was just my preference. I mean, I was prefacing, the what is it? What did you say? Preface? Preface?
No, you said
preface,
right. Preface.
Yeah, that was my lead up to discussing his
But
trip.
no, because you opened up a can of worms. So, like, first of all, you didn't have a place for us to come to. Until recently.
It's hotels.
No, we don't do
hotels.
hotels.
Been existing
we
for
don't
a long
do hotels.
time. They've been, okay.
Do I put you in a hotel?
Just because you had a bed.
Do I put you in a hotel?
You had a couch.
Okay. Did you have a couch for us?
Yes.
You never told us.
What did you think I was a sitting camp style?
You ain't
in my living room?
You didn't have a place for us to attend.
Why he so hurt? Why he so...
Because you making it seem like...
No. There was no making it seem anything. It was simply, a segue into Isaac's trip to Seattle, which I thought was a phenomenal trip.
But why you had to take a dig? You could have just went
because I wanted to isolate...
They said this is the first time.
The reason
this
why...
This is the first time.
The reason why is because I wanted to emphasize that he took steps that were... steps that were unique.
This guy
to,
is working my
like,
nerves.
my relationship with the family.
Let's forward a
He
bit.
did something.
20 minutes later. How is that valuable
How is that valuable?
for what you get ready to ask?
It's valuable because, like, if you're doing something that no one else has done in your family, like, what was that experience like for you? Do you mind if I finish out my thoughts, or you want to stop and try to defend yourself?
I don't like where you going with this.
Like, I want to know what his experience was like to be stepping out and doing something, particularly because
That's the question. That's the
stepping
question.
out and doing something that no one else in his family
See,
has done.
all that's extra.
Although
All
I
that's
won't say
extra.
no one else. That's not
That don't
necessarily, that's not
even
necessarily
that
true
don't
because
pertain to the question.
Buster did come and stay at our place in New York. He did. But that's, I guess you want to continue, you want to defend yourself against that too. But
Well, I just say you never stayed in the hotel when you come to Austin.
okay,
And I have a 5-piece family.
okay. You didn't always have a 5-piece family.
I had a family as long as you had a place to stay.
Okay, well, let's
When
segue
I
into.
didn't have a 5-piece family, you didn't have a place for us
hurt.
to come stay.
He's upset. So
Did you? See, he changed it now.
Well,
he changed it.
since we're talking to them,
When I was single, we didn't have kids.
mm-hmm.
You was traveling everywhere. You had no
This is
sense
true.
All right.
This is true.
Okay.
This
so
is
once
true.
I had children,
This is true. Well, let's acknowledge that this is true,
Don't be
so that
pandering
we
either.
can
Don't be
segue
pandering,
into.
'cause you know it's true.
So we can move and transition into my
Real
curiosity,
question.
my question.
Your real question.
Well, that wasn't a question. That was a statement.
Well, yeah, you
like
just
so here
told me
now
no.
that was a part of leading into it. So my question, we've been doing this for a long time, y'all. Like, you know,
You've been
the
getting
back
on my
and
nerves for
forth.
a long
He's been getting on my nerves for a long time. Listen, Isaac had, you came out.
What?
And he came out to. No.
I don't know what.
Let
See,
me
this
see.
guy. He's just on a tangent now. What
Isaac
is
came
he saying?
out to Seattle.
He's just
where I
making up
present.
stuff. See, I told y'all. He don't mean half of the stuff he said.
This is what happens when you don't fully listen to an
What did he
complete
say?
statement. Because the complete
Did
statement is he came out to. Isaac came out to Seattle.
Okay. Yeah, I did.
He came out to
did.
Seattle, and one of the things that I noticed when he came out was his independence. And I tried to also allow, I know me, and even though getting to know you, I still have this protective type, paternal type nature that I can give to any friend of mine that seems like they're becoming in their 20s or younger 30s. I naturally just start wanting to say, I don't know if you should do that, or whatever. But I said, you know what? This guy's 21 years old. I want to give him enough, even though we're working together, for my pictures and stuff, I wanted to also allow some space and everything. But the other thing for me that was a little bit of a sensitive subject matter was that I'm close with your parents. And so it's like, God forbid anything happens to their son while he's here, then I have to answer to you guys.
Yeah.
But I still said, okay, but I have to allow him that. But so you had time with me, but you also had time alone. And speaking of, because you mentioned earlier about traveling by oneself and everything, and he had, like, when you did the photo shoot with somebody else. So, like, yeah. So if you will, just kind of expound on some of that for me. Your just what was it? Was there any fear involved? Was there any nervousness or excitement, or was it like what was that for you?
That's a good question. I was just like, all right, time to get to work.
Really?
Yeah. Like I said, I have a pretty what's it called? Like I have a pretty steady temperance. Is that a word? Like I'm real like steady and like confident. So I was just like before I went, I knew I wanted to get some work done, and I wasn't nervous. I'll just like do what I normally do, but in a different state. I think I just take that approach with me all the time, so it didn't feel different when I was in a different state. I don't know. I feel like location or environment doesn't really get to dictate how I feel inside.
So that leads me to a question for both of y'all. Then, like, speaking of travel, do you feel like you can get the same thing, and if so, how, from the same thing that you get from traveling? Do you feel like you can access that same stuff right here? And if so, How?
Yeah, I think so. But I think it takes a little bit of like a lot of introspection, I guess, to like really break down what makes traveling or particular countries like unique from the one that you're living in. Um, but I've been able to replicate like that vacation feeling here. But like I said, like vacation or like going to a different country is essential for that very reason. So I could take back some things that I learned from different countries and apply it to my life. For example, just like emphasizing being outside, connecting with friends, or eating clean food, like different things that we take for granted, or different types of food, like salmon jerky, like like stuff like that, like and I think going back to what I said about like that different part of my brain being activated, like though I'm still like like still based when I'm in different states or different countries, there's still that part of my brain that's like able to almost breathe in a sense, like breathe in a different way, like creativity wise. And so when I'm in a different country or state and I'm still in like that work mode, I'm able to like come up with different compositions because I'm playing off of this unique new environment. It's kind of like the honeymoon phase of like learning anything. Like first time learning the camera is kind of replicated in that. The first time like I don't know, cooking is kind of replicated in that. Just the newness of being in a new environment. I don't know.
And I think you can replicate everything but the optics of it. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't get this exact scenery, you know what I'm saying? But I think you can get the exhilaration of the culture, you know what I'm saying, right where you are, if you're willing to, and a lot of this, I mean, it's nuanced because I think as black people, we've tried to do this and it hasn't been received. But I think what has to happen is cultures have to come together and respect each other and value what each other brings to the table. You know what I'm saying? Which I think that's forced upon you in other countries. You have to, otherwise you're not going to survive.
You mean it's forced upon you as a traveler?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you don't eat their food, like you have to eat their food. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You have to accept their accommodations with respect to the water pressure, you know, and wherever you're living at, or how to flush the toilet. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of these things are forced upon you, and so it is what it is. But here in America, they're not forced on you. You have to choose it. You know what I'm saying? And I think black people in general, not all of collectively, but we've chosen or tried to reach across the aisle to different cultures, but it haven't been reciprocated.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I think whenever it is reciprocated, you'll get that same sense of euphoria you get from traveling to other countries. You know what I'm saying? Because they inevitably they're going to expose you to their customs, whether they realize it or not. That's what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? What they eat, what they, you know, how they view certain things. Like I think it can happen, but it's not organic.
You know what's interesting about what you're saying too? I'm flipping in my mind like the picture, right? So I'm imagining what you're saying. I can get that here in America because it's so multicultural.
Right.
But then if I grew up in, I don't know,
China,
China, they're depending on the tourists to come, but primarily they just deal with their own culture, so they're not forced to learn other things, you know?
Yeah.
I just wonder what that experience is like for them. And not that we can answer that, but for us, we do have that advantage. Like you're saying, we have access to so many different cultures and this, that, and the other. So that is one of the benefits of being here in the U.S. or a lot of Western countries. It's just that there is a lot more diversity. And so the option is there, or the ability is there. But then you go some places where that's just not a given, you know?
Yeah.
So I wonder, what are some things that you think are exclusive to travel? Like what are some things that you think if you didn't travel, you know?
That's a great question, man. I'm going to go spiritual. I think there's an aspect of God that you cannot know unless you travel.
Really? See, now that leads to another question.
But that's the truth, though.
But it leads to another question.
Okay.
And I'd like for you to expound on that.
Okay.
But the other question, I'll just throw this in there now so I don't have to interrupt or get thrown off. What about those who don't have access to travel?
Yeah. That's a great question, too. I think you're missing out. But you're missing out on something you don't know about. So you're not really missing out from your perspective, if that makes sense. But like for those of us who can travel, we know the perks and the benefits of being able to do that from a spiritual perspective. Like I think it decenters you, kind of like you were saying earlier, from seeing yourself as the apple of God's eye.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you realize that God does not favor America like we think he does. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And I think you can only get that from traveling. Mm-hmm. I could tell you that all day. Until you experience it, you don't believe me. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Until you experience like going other places, seeing God at work in the people, and even like just viewing like creation, like the same way God created us intimately, intricately, carefully, wonderfully, he took the exact same time and energy to do that to them too. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so there's a equality that's there too, that if you really believe God, you believe that these people are as valuable as you are. And I think you don't get that if you don't travel. And again, just to reiterate, for those who can't travel, they don't know.
Mm-hmm. Or they have those of us who can.
But they have to be humble enough to hear what we're saying now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's here again in the U.S. because if you're in another country and you can't travel, like, I mean, you are still limited in your experience, whatever, but you may not have somebody who can come back and show you and tell you, like, we have access to that stuff here. Like, my father doesn't travel like my mother does, but he sees all my pictures, he hears my stories, I bring him something back, whatever, so he does get some of it vicariously through me, you know, but then not everybody has that same, you know, privilege or what have you.
Yeah.
So you think that to reiterate, as far as what you can get exclusively from travel, in a nutshell.
Yeah, just a bigger picture of God.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's exclusive to travel, or like you said, hearing somebody who has traveled. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I think that's something you can't get isolated from the rest of the world.
You know what? Actually, when you think about it, like not just thinking about people, but go to a safari, and you'll see that you're not as big as you thought you were. You don't have no gun on you. You just gotta hope that this cheetah doesn't jump into this vehicle, you know, and you're relying on stats and stuff like that they usually don't do this, or because, you know, they don't necessarily see you, they see the whole vehicle, so they don't see these individuals, is what I was told when I was there, in first safari. So they might not attack you because they don't see you as an individual, but as soon as you step out of that thing, you're part of the food chain all of a sudden again. And so you start realizing that you're not as big and bad, like you know, what do you say, you're not the center, the center of everything anymore. All of a sudden, now you're prey. You know. Yeah. And so you definitely, again, not just learning the magnificence and beauty of just people around the world and cultures, but you also start to look at nature a little differently if you have that type of thing. When you're in the ocean and you realize this whale could tip this boat, like, you know what I'm saying, like, or this great white could actually, it's a total.
Yeah.
And I think that we're very limited in that sense.
Yeah.
You know. And my issue is not with being limited, but not having the experience and not. My issue is making what you think you know everything.
I know.
If you don't know and you know you don't know, that's wonderful.
That's grace. We have grace for that.
Exactly.
But when you emphatically like, this is all it is of life, and man, come on.
Yeah. You know, when people talk about America, first of all, most of us didn't choose to be American. And I'm not saying anything bad about America.
Yeah.
Everything's got its thing. But a lot of us were just born into the system. We were told that we were American, and this is how life goes for you.
Yeah.
And then we just live it, and it's so natural to us that we don't know other things. So then you have somebody, when you do see something that's a little off, and then you have somebody say something like, "Well, leave." That that's the two different types of limitations that I'm talking about. The one is saying something's off, I'm not sure what it is, but something's not right, something could be fixed or adjusted. The other one is saying, well, you could just leave if you don't like it, which shows how closed and limited you are in your thinking, and it's because you've never had the opportunity to see that, yeah, I could leave and I could have better health care. I could have better air. I could have, exactly more time to myself where I'm not working to live. I could have a stronger family unit,
You're right.
I could.
Yeah.
But you saying leave just shows that you have no idea that outside of these fake lines and stuff, that there are other things out there.
And better places to go. Yeah.
Places where I might live longer and healthier.
Right.
And less stressed out. So I think definitely travel
That's a good point.
expands that, or just shows you that, like you said, this is not everything.
Yeah.
You know what somebody said to me in South Africa was, she said, because this is something one of y'all said earlier. Maybe you'll remember when I tell you the story, but we were so excited to be there, and we were like, thank you so much, you've been such a great host and everything. She said, the reason why you guys are enjoying yourselves so much is because you brought your happiness with you. She said, you'd be surprised at how many people come here and are miserable. They come to this paradise and they're miserable because they bring their misery with them, and they always find something to complain about, something that's not right or meeting their expectations. And there's something about going to other place and letting go of the projections and of the conditioning and all that kind of stuff. And people often ask me, like, if I'm going to some place like Israel or China, or what's the other place called, Lebanon. Are you sure? Is it safe there? All these kind of stuff. Never mind that we getting dragged through streets and shot up here and all that kind of stuff. Never mind that stuff.
Right.
But we worried about going to this other country. And when you get there, oftentimes, if you release all that stuff, you'll see that, sure, there are certain people who might mean you no good, but, for the most part, that's not happening. They're welcoming you.
Right.
It's not what you're seeing on the media.
Right.
And you go there, and if you go there with this open thing and you're not trying to make it America, but you're actually trying to be there and accept it as what it is and interact with the people and all that kind of stuff, you bring your own, curiosity and happiness and joy, whatever, and you're not expecting this thing to meet your whatever.
Yeah.
It just changes everything.
Yeah. So what would you say was unique to the travel experience that you can't get anywhere else?
Mine was really simple, just something new. Like something new to put your eyes on.
I had a question about that when you said that earlier, something similar to that.
Yeah.
So if you go back to that same place, do you think you had that same feeling of newness?
Yes, but not as much.
Why?
Because I'm so used to what I see here.
I wonder why, though. And my question is asking mainly because why is it not new? Like right now, I'm sitting here with you, and I've seen you before, but this is totally new.
It's true.
Yeah.
I've
been seeing this guy for nearly still new. And I think, so I'm wondering why we allow these places to become, I don't know, like just some kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, something other.
But you know what? That's true even of the indigenous people of those areas.
Yeah,
like they don't
absolutely.
realize how special, and us too, how special their location is. Like, I think there must be something that happens in the mind or in the brain when we become familiar. We tend to devalue. You know what I'm saying?
You're saying something, because you know what this bringing me back to is our first conversation about relationships and friendships, because like it starts here.
Yeah.
That is going to reflect this. And so if I'm not you said be a friend in order to, so I have to be that, even a friend to myself, right? And but if I have lived in this, if I've gotten so used to this, to now I'm just Sean, then Sean already went there. And I think that that's part of the thing right there, Sean already went there, but I'm not realizing that Sean has gone through so many changes since that time, and so has that place. To wherever I go, even if it's my own home, going back to it, it's totally different. Like, I have lots of plants, and I think that's where I kind of see it too. I have to observe them. You know, we don't have to observe the couch to see if the couch is changing, whatever.
Or Sphinx.
Or Sphinx. But I have to observe my plants and watch, and you can see a little droop, and I can't ever look at it as a fake plant or something artificial. It's something that's actively changing, and so because I'm caring for it, I have to do that. And I think it's the same thing with the body, listening and observing and allowing that newness to always be, so that you know when something's whatever. And it's probably if we do that with ourselves, I feel like it would naturally just kind of flow into all of our travels. Whereas every time I come to Austin, it's new, you know.
Yeah.
Even though I've been coming here forever, it's still new. You know, a new building came out, a new restaurant came up. You have a new experience. That story that you're gonna tell me later on about almost going to jail, new, something new all the time.
Shedrach Rowry Creative Content.